Howdy everybody, welcome back to Combo Compendium. Today we're talking about a deck that I completely forgot existed until like last week when everybody started uploading their structure deck openings. And it's all of the new Red Dragon Archfiend cards, along with, of course, the Resonators as well. So this deck completely slipped my mind. I was really late getting into testing it. So this is all combos that I've been working on basically for a week now. But I do think that I did find some good lines, and the combos that Tombox showed off, mst.tv, the combos he showed off in his video were a good starting point. So shoutouts to him. But yeah, this essentially is a 1-card to 2-card combo deck. So there's going to be a lot of variations of 1 to 2 cards that get you to your end boards. It's very similar to Manadium in that aspect, but the deck does play a lot of extenders, so even having like more cards in hand can help you play through disruptions and things like that. So first, I'm going to show off the 1-card combo, which is technically a 1.5 card combo because you have to have a discard, but there are 2 variations to this 1-card combo where basically all you need is Soul Resonator. So the first variation, we're going to normal summon the Soul Resonator, and what it does is that it adds a level 4 or lower Fiend from the deck to your hand, but you're locked into Dark Synchros for the rest of the turn, which multiple cards in this deck do that, so there's pretty much no way to avoid that restriction. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the Bone Archfiend. Bone Archfiend can send a card from hand or field to the grave to special summon. And it has a second effect on the field, which is you can dump a fiend to the grave to either increase or decrease the level of a fiend you control. So we're going to target the Soul Resonator and make it a level 2. The reason I like making Soul Resonator a level 2 instead of modulating the levels of Archfiend is that if you open something like a Wild Wind or a Bystial, and your opponent removes your Bone Archfiend for some reason, it gives you a level 2 tuner on board to extend into your plays. So I would recommend 99% of the time making the Soul Resonator level 2 because it helps you play through interruptions better. So we dump the Crimson Resonator off of the Bone Archfiend, and now we can make the Red Rising Dragon, which will bring back the Crimson Resonator. And now, since the only other monster we control, other than Crimson Resonator, is a Dark Synchro Dragon, we can use Crimson's effect to summon out 2 Resonators from the deck. So we're going to get the Vision and the Synchron. So Vision is an extender from hand if you have a level 5 or higher Dark monster on the field, which is just a very good generic extender, by the way. Like if you play any Bystial combo deck, this card is probably worth testing. But more importantly, if it's sent to the grave, you can add a spell trap that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to synchro these 2 for the Scarred Red Dragon. So this will trigger the Vision to grab Crimson Gaia. Next we can synchro these 2 off for the Hot Red, and we're going to get 2 effects trigger here. First is the Scarred, which will summon a Red Dragon Archfiend from the extra deck because it was used as material. And importantly, if you're going second and you're doing this combo, if this card was used for the Synchro summon of a Dark Dragon Synchro, it destroys all attack position monsters your opponent controls. So it's just a very random built-in way to like Raigeki your opponent going second, which is just a very nice quality of life effect to have. So Synchron's going to add back the Vision to hand because it is an extender from hand and we haven't used that effect yet. So next we're going to use the Crimson and the RDA to make Bane. We're going to use, we're going to Vision summon and then Bane Tribute to summon back the Scarred. Next we can activate the Crimson Gaia to search Red Zone. And Red Zone, what it does is when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control Red Dragon Archfiend or a Synchro monster that mentions it, which we do have with Scarred, You can target a card on the field, destroy it, and then once per turn, target a banished Dark Dragon Synchro and special summon it. So this is going to be our basic end board. It's not much. It's not much, but it is still... It is an annoying board to deal with, I will say that. Right? Because you get the Omni Negate with Abyss, and you get the pop with Red Zone, and whenever you pop a card, it triggers the Crimson Gaia, which says if a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special a Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. Which we do have the OG RDA in the grave. So having these two cards on the field at the same time basically makes it so that you can pop a card every turn and just like infinitely summon your Red Dragon Archfiends from your grave. And if any of them get banished, you can also special summon them back with Red Zone as well. Plus all these monsters are just very high attack. So it's like a very annoying board that just recycles big guys. There's not too many disruptions, but since it is a one card combo, there's a chance you might have a bunch of non-engine in here as well. Let me show you the second variation of the one card. So here's the second version of the one card combo. It's going to start basically exactly the same as last time, but basically we're going to summon two different monsters off of the Crimson. So we're going to summon two level 2s. Now if you're playing more of a pure build, you might be playing something like Red Resonator. But if you're playing the Bystial build, which is a lot more tight when it comes to space, I don't play the Red Resonator, but what you can do is just summon two copies of Vision. Because you don't have to summon different names, you just have to summon two Resonator monsters. So if you don't play Red, you're probably going to be playing 2 to 3 copies of Vision, so you can just summon 2 Vision. And what this does is, if you play Red, you can gain life, which is cool for, you know, if you want to win in time or something. But what this does is that it puts a Dark Dragon Synchro and 3 tuners, which will go up into the Red Supernova Dragon. Now this card is pretty insane. But what's even better is that we can get the Gaia for the Red Zone. And this is really cool for multiple reasons. So, Supernova gains 500 attack for each tuner in the grave, which we have a lot right now, so it's 6,000. And cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, which is a nice bonus. And once per turn, when an opponent's monster effect is activated, or when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can activate this effect, banish this card, also banish all cards your opponent controls, and then during your next end phase, after this card was banished, special summon it back to the field. So what's cool about this is that it's a full board wipe banish, which is a very, very powerful effect. Basically, there's nothing that isn't immune to it. So let's just say, for example, our opponent starts playing their stuff, and then, you know, they activate a monster effect in the middle of their combo or whatever. We Red Supernova, we banish their entire field. So now they're starting from scratch again after they've already started their combo. The thing is, it turns out that Red Supernova Dragon is not a hard once per turn. So if you have Red Zone, you can, on resolution after you use the effect, summon it back to the field, and then now your opponent starts from scratch, and they have to play through another full board wipe. Another full board banish, because nobody put a hard once per turn on this card. Probably because they weren't expecting people to be able to do it twice in one turn when they printed it, but obviously somebody decided to print Red Zone, and then this is now possible. So you basically get 2 full board banishes off of one singular card, which against certain decks is kind of a big deal. It's also really weak to things like Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, and Dark Ruler. You can play around Dark Ruler in this deck if you have Hot Red, because you can chain Red Zone to the Dark Ruler, and then chain Abyss target Dark Ruler. So this is a more fragile board, but it is also very, very powerful if the double board wipe is... if you think it's going to be useful in the matchup. Okay, now we're going to be moving into the 2-card combo section. And this deck is actually very consistent. Because you have tons and tons of copies of your Resonators, thanks to Resonator Call and Crimson Gaia. The only other thing you really need is a level 4 extender, which can be the Bone Archfiend, it can be Wandering King, Wild Wind, and of course Soul Resonator can also just search one of these as well. So we're going to start with Crimson Resonator this time. So it can special summon itself out if you control no monsters, which is very nice. And then we are going to normal summon the Bone Archfiend, because it can also special summon itself from the graveyard as well. So if you normal summon it now, it turns into another extender later on in the turn. So then we're going to make the Red Rising Dragon here. Red Rising is going to bring back Crimson, and we're going to summon the Vision as usual, but instead of the Synchron, we're going to summon Soul. And then we're going to use Soul to search the Synchron. So then we can use the Red Rising and the Soul to make a Hot Red Abyss because they add up to 9. We can special the Synchron because there is a Synchro monster on the field. And what we're going to do is we're going to go straight into the Dissipator. Which might seem a little strange, but you know, why would you want to get rid of this on the field? But you'll see later on. We can use the Synchron to add back the Soul. And then we can use the Bone Archfiend, discarding the Soul that we just added back to summon back. So that's a very nice resource loop there. What we're going to do is we're going to Soul target the Crimson to actually reduce its level by 1, so it becomes level 1, which is very important. And we're going to dump the Obsessive Uvaloop. This card looks insanely stupid, but it is actually really good in this deck. It is insanely good in this deck for not only your combos, but also your grind game with cards like Dissipator. And if you're playing Bystials as well, you can use it to easily trigger Regained over and over again. It's a really stupid looking card, but it's very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Uvaloop in grave. What it does is that it banishes a Synchro monster in the grave and it adds it to hand. Then we can use the Dissipator to summon back the Abyss. So now we don't really care that we synchroed it off earlier. What we can do is then go for the Red Rising Dragon because it is not once per turn. As well as the Vision to add the Gaia, don't forget to do that. And we're going to summon out the Synchron Resonator. So now we have 2 level 1s on the board. And we can use the Uvaloop, banishing our Red Rising Dragon to summon. And it is a level 4 tuner. So now we have 6 stars worth of tuners and a 6-star Dark Dragon Synchro. So this will go up into the Red Supernova. And then we can use Synchron again, because this effect isn't once per turn to add back. And this is going to grab us the Soul Resonator for follow-up. So now we have a 1-card combo next turn, if our opponent gets through this board. So of course we're going to use the Gaia, and we're going to add the Red Zone. So this is basically everything. This is like all you could ever want, pretty much. So you get the Omni Negate with Abyss. You get the Dissipator, which actually has a card banished this time. So the Dissipator is now live. You get the Destruction effect. And if your opponent plays a deck that banishes cards, then you can shuffle back their monsters to get to the negate effect. And then you also just have the double banish with Red Supernova. So it is a ridiculous amount of interruptions. And it plays around Dark Ruler, because if they try to Dark Ruler, you can chain Red Zone, and then chain Abyss, Chainlink 3 to the Dark Ruler, to negate the Dark Ruler. Because Dark Ruler only says you can't activate monster effects in response, but you're activating a trap card in response, and then you're activating a monster card in response to the trap card. So it gets around Dark Ruler pretty easily, and this is just a really, really good board for a 2-card combo. So now we're going to go back to our Soul Resonator combos. So this is going to be the 2-card combo with Soul and Bone. We're going to summon this out. We're going to search the Crimson, and then we can discard the Crimson to summon the Bone. Bone reduce level by sending Lubellion. This is really nice because in the 1-card combo, there's no way to really get to this. But if you have a discard like Crimson, then you can freely dump this because you get to bring back the Crimson Resonator anyway with our Red Rising. So we're going to summon our Vision and Synchron, go into our Scarred, trigger Vision to add Gaia. We can go ahead and activate Gaia here to grab Red Zone. Synchro into our Abyss. We're going to get both effects here to add the Vision and then summon the RDA. Synchro into a Dispotter. And then we're going to use the effect of the Lubellion, banishing our OG RDA. And then we can get Dissipator effect to summon it back. Set our Red Zone and pass. And then the crucial part about this is that, yes, you can use the Lubellion to banish something like Scarred. And then you can summon back the Scarred with Red Zone. But if you want to be conservative with your card advantage, you know, or maybe you didn't get the Lubellion into rotation, right? What you can do is go to the end phase, and Red Dragon Archfiend has an effect that during the end phase, it destroys all monsters that didn't attack this turn. And for some reason, this triggers on turn 1, even if you like don't get a battle phase. But luckily, Soul Resonator actually has an effect in Grave, where if a card you control would be destroyed by a card effect, and you control RDA or a synchro monster that mentions it, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So what this does is it's a very easy way to put a card in the banish pile for your Dissipator to make it live. And that's very nice. That's something to keep in mind in certain combos. You know, maybe things get a little icky. You know, you get hand trapped a lot, so your end board is kind of scuffed. So you end on something like Dissipator plus a Red Dragon Archfiend or something, and you don't really have a way to banish cards. So just keep in mind that you can do RDA banishing the soul. Alright, now let's talk about the Bystials. So Bystials have a lot of synergy with this deck. Number 1, they are dragons, and cards like Lubellion and Beast and Regained, things like that, they synergize very well with all of the like dark dragon synchros that we have, as well as of course Dispotter, obviously. And number 2, they're all hand traps, obviously. They're just like big guys that you can summon as hand traps. Another important thing is that they're all just level 6 bodies that you can summon very easily. And in a deck like, you know, Resonators that summon a bunch of small tuners, like level 2 tuners, they're just really good extenders as well. They're very efficient extenders to be able to like keep comboing off if you get interrupted. But they can also do some very spicy things, which I'm going to show you in this combo, which is going to be Soul plus Lubellion and a discard. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for our Soul, and we're going to do a lot of the same stuff here at the beginning, and things will get progressively spicier as we move on to the end. So this is all just, you know, standard things that I've shown you before. Add back Vision, make our Red Dragon, make Dispotter. And now that we're at this step, what we're going to do is we're going to use Lubellion's effect, discarding it to add a Saronir. We can use Saronir, banishing any card from the grave, doesn't really matter. Actually, wait, it does matter. Sorry, it does matter. We're going to banish the Crimson Resonator because it's one of our level 2 tuners. Then we can tribute the Saronir to summon back Lubellion. This is going to dump Etude of the Branded. If you're not familiar with this card, it is during either player's turn, you can immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using monsters you control as material, including a dragon. So this card saw like fringe experimentation in some of the Bystial synchro decks, but it has really good applications in this deck, but it is very gimmicky, I will say that. If you want to play like a more standard build, I would just play Regained instead. But if you want to be spicy, if you want to get a little heat, you can play Etude, and I'll show you why this is crazy. We're going to get Lubellion, which is going to grab our Beast, and our Gaia is going to grab our Red Zone. So having these 3 cards on the field at the same time basically makes it so that you have like an unlosable grind game, because Beast pops a card which summons back, which triggers Gaia, which summons back a Red Dragon Archfiend, and then Red Zone, if you have a Red Dragon Archfiend, you pop a card, and then, you know, you can just like loop this over and over again. So what we're going to do here is we're going to summon our Vision. We're going to use Dispotter to summon back our Crimson. We're going to go to the end phase here, activate Red Zone. Our opponent is going to summon a monster, like they just summon any monster or they activate any card. What we're going to do is we're going to use Beast to pop it, which will then trigger the Gaia, summoning back our Red Dragon Archfiend from the grave. And then on resolution, make sure you do this on resolution because it has to be Chainlink 1. We're going to activate Etude of the Branded, and we're going to synchro summon Calamity during our opponent's turn. And then they lose the game. So if your opponent activates one singular card, you can then Calamity lock them. With a negate on the board, and with Dispotter on the board also potentially being another negate or another pop, plus Red Zone, plus Gaia, plus Beast, plus, you know, whatever this does. But yeah, this... it's so stupid that, that you can do this. Like, completely in-engine. Like, you're not doing any, like, stupid shenanigans, right? Like, we synchro summoned this using Red Dragon and Resonator cards. There weren't any stupid shenanigans going on here. Other than Bystials, of course. Because you need to get this. So this is very strong, obviously, but it's also very gimmicky. If you want to play Bystials, I would recommend just, instead of playing Etude, just play Regained. So that you have Red Zone, Gaia, Beast, and Regained all on the field at the same time. Which is basically just infinite card advantage. It makes you like unkillable because your dudes just float and you're summoning back cards all the time. But yeah, you can Calamity lock during your opponent's turn completely in engine. In Red Dragon Archfiends now. Copium. So this is going to be the last combo I show off for this deck. It's going to be using Saronir instead of Lubellion. Because Saronir is technically like a pseudo searcher for Lubellion. Basically you just end on Beast instead of Beast plus Regained, which is still good. One important thing to note about Saronir combos is that... Here, I'll just do this first. So, you use the Soul to get the Bone Archfiend, right? Technically, you can use the Bone Archfiend discarding the Saronir to summon itself, which triggers the Saronir to dump Lubellion, which is all fine and good. I was like labbing out combos with just like these 2 cards and then discarding Saronir off of Bone Archfiend. And I just really couldn't find an end board that I liked by doing this. The extra body that you get with Saronir is like super valuable, as well as the effect in hand being able to banish cards, which like sets up Dispater combos and it sets up interruptions with Dispater. Yes, there are combos that you can use Bone Archfiend to discard Saronir, but I just didn't like any of them. And in a deck like this, you're almost always going to have some random card that you don't really mind discarding anyway, because it's like a 2-card combo deck, so you have 3 other cards in your hand. One of them's probably not going to be that great. I'm going to be doing this combo with a discard. So it's going to start the same as always, right? Dumping the Crimson, bringing it back, going for our Synchron into Scarred, making Hot Red. Hot Red will summon back the RDA and make Dispowder. And then we can use our Saronir effect, banishing the Red Dragon Archfiend. So what we can do is we're going to Synchro into our Scarred. We're going to use Lubellion to send, or sorry, Saronir to send Lubellion. We had to Synchro into this because we had to get the Saronir off the field. What we're going to do is we're going to Dispowder, summon the Red Dragon Archfiend, and then we are going to tribute this to summon the Lubellion, which will get us our Beast, and then we can Gaia for our Red Zone. And then, this is another application of ending on Red Dragon, because we currently don't have anything banished, right? So our Dispowder is currently not live, but we can do the little trick with the end phase Red Dragon effect in order to get the Soul Resonator banished. So now, currently, we have the Dispowder live, we have the Abyss live, we have Beast live, which you contribute either Lubellion or RDA. We also have the Red Zone pop and the Crimson Gaia effect a special back. So, you know, if you tribute the RDA to pop a card, you can trigger the Gaia, which summons back the Scarred, which will then turn back on the Red Zone to destroy a card when our opponent activates an effect. And a reason to tribute this over Lubellion is that if your Lubellion survives a turn, you can use it to grab the Regained, right? So now you have the full back row setup here of infinite card advantage, right? So you get Gaia to search, you get Lubellion to grab Regained, and then from here you're just, you know, comboing off all over again with like tons and tons of destruction effects and summon effects. So that's very nice. And since, you know, people ask for deck profiles in my combo videos, here's like my very early list that I'm playing with all the Bystials. You'll see I'm running 8. So 3 Lubellion, 1 Druis Worm, 2 Mag, and 2 Saronir. And you'll see I'm on 3 Bone, 1 Wild Wind. This card is pretty searchable. It's like the worse extender compared to Bone. So it's fine as a one-of if you need to search it. You get the Uva Loop, which is our really good grind game tool for banishing cards. 3 Soul, it's the best starter. 3 Crimson, which is our best 2 cards. It's the best Resonator for the 2-card combos, I would say. 2 Vision, because you can get one of them off of for just the standard combo, and you can get 2 of them for the Supernova combo. 1 Synchron. I like Prosperity in this deck because you can go full combo in most boards even after you banish 6. And what's cool about this deck is that it's very good at making Dispowder, which Dispowder can actually shuffle back your extra deck monsters that you banished off of Prosperity. You know, so for example, if you banish like Barone or something, and you really want the Barone for like next turn as a follow-up play, you can use Dissipator to put it back and then make it next turn. So that's pretty cool. It gives you free banish fodder for Dispowder, which is good. 3 Resonator Call, it searches all of your best cards. I play 2 Thrust and Talents, as well as 3 Book of Eclipse. This deck, I think, is going to really struggle going second. So I want some like really high impact. I might try out Dark Ruler in here as well, but we'll see how it goes. 3 Gaia, because it's the Searcher, Regained, Beast and Regained. 3 Imperm and Red Zone. And then a pretty standard extra deck for this deck, I think. You have like one flex, you have a couple flex spots, but since your entire deck locks you into Dark Dragon Synchros, you can't really play anything other than all of these cards, right? This is like basically all you can play. And then some other tech options you can consider is Etude, if you want to do like some shenanigans on your opponent's turn. One other thing I forgot to mention with Etude is that you can also, if you end on just Scarred and any level 2 tuner, you can synchro into Bane on the opponent's turn, which will trigger Scarred to destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. So aside from just doing Calamity stuff, you can also set up board wipes on the opponent's turn with Scarred's second effect. So that's another thing to consider if you want to try Etude. There's also Assault Synchron, which I really want to like try to fit this in here, because Assault Synchron with like Bystial stuff is insanely strong. But as you can see, I just don't have any space. I'm already at 42 cards. I'm struggling to cut this down to 40. Trying to fit Assault Synchron in here is going to be hard. But if you're playing like a smaller Bystial package, you maybe can fit it in, but eh. Red Resonator, I would play this as a one-of in the side to like win in time, because you can just summon this off of like anything basically and then just gain life. And then there's Fiendish Golem. I've seen a few other combos that like end on this instead of ending on Red Zone. And sometimes that can be a good thing, because you're not always going to have the requirement of having a RDA on the field or a monster that mentions it to get the interruption with Red Zone. The problem I have with Fiendish Golem, in terms of like a competitive perspective, is that this card is just ass against all of the best decks in the game right now. Because it has to target a monster on the field with 2,000 or more attack, and it banishes it. So, you know, thinking about the decks that are in the game right now, you have Unchained, which, like, yeah, you can hit Yama, or you can hit the level 6. What's his name? Because this has 2,000, Yama has 2,000. Like, yeah, you can hit these and you can banish them. They come back at the end of the next turn. And this deck is not going to have a good time OTKing Unchained, because all of its effects are destruction based. So your opponent's just going to float infinitely to stall until the next turn, and then they're just going to get their guy back, and then now they have more setup playing into your board. So it's just not great. And then there's Purely, which this deck has like one card that has 2,000 or more attack. Yeah, like Happiness. Like they're just gonna make a Noir and then like try to Zeus your ass. Like this card has 0 targets against this deck, so this card is basically useless against Purely. Kashtira. Sure, you can banish any of these, but there's this card called Birth, which is just gonna summon back the card that you banish, so yeah, cool card. What else is there? Rescue Ace. Rescue Ace has like one good target. Is that not how you spell Rescue Ace? What am I... Is it a hyphen? It's a hyphen. Again, like, there's like... Turbulence and Preventer are the only good targets. Your opponent's just gonna bait out your negates or like try to crack your board with access code before they summon Turbulence, so again, just doesn't... Yeah, you can see I'm not a fan of this card right now. I would much rather just, you know, rely on Red Zone as a grind game tool and rely on my other options as well as non-engine to try to like stop. So yeah, I would highly, if you're trying to play this deck in a competitive setting, I would definitely just not consider this card. Just play Red Zone. You know, plus this card is just terrible to draw. Like if you're going blind second, this card is just terrible to draw. Whereas if you're playing Red Zone, at least it gives you some grind game if you're able to like slightly crack the board with things like Scarlight or Scarred. Yeah, just not a fan. But yeah, this is my very early... Obviously these cards have not come out yet, so this is like a very early untested list, but yeah, this is pretty close to what it's going to look like. I might just swap some of these non-engine cards around depending on how the metagame shifts, or if hopefully a ban list comes out soon. So that's all for this combo compendium. See ya.